Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to our buddy read of Mr. Scarborough's Family by Anthony Trollope. We have been on a roller coaster ride with this book, not only with the course of true love not running smooth, but also with the main plot of the story, the plot by Mr. Scarborough to disinherit his eldest son, Montjoy. Put forward actual church registry documentation to prove that Montjoy, his heir to the wealthy property of Tretton Park, is in fact illegitimate. And we get the fallout from that throughout the whole book. Not only with Montjoy, who is an incurable gambler, but also with Augustus Scarborough, his horrible younger brother, who is now the heir to Tretton Park, only to get us to the end of the book when Mr. Scarborough reveals that he had a second marriage, that he has a second batch of verifying documentation that proves that Montjoy is legitimate. And he's right back to being heir to Tretton Park. All because Mr. Scarborough cannot stand the idea that the law can tell him what to do. Now, all sorts of other plot lines going on in the book, but the main three are the central plot line, who will inherit Tretton Park, then also the traumatic effect that all of these legal shenanigans have on Mr. Scarborough's lawyer, Mr. Gray, who believes in the law. He's not a sharp customer like his partner, Mr. Barry. He believes in the law and believed in the first cases and has now been made a complete fool of in the eyes of the world. As we've said many times, the world, when it hears all these details, is going to think one of two things. Either Mr. Gray was in on the swindle all along, in which case he has no honor, or he was completely unaware of any of it, the first swindle and the second, which means he has no brain. In either case, as Mr. Gray, to his credit, realizes almost immediately, he's done as a lawyer. And then there's the third plot line, in my opinion, the weakest one, in Trollope it often is, which is the love story. Harry Annesley and Florence Montjoy, who have to go through a lot in order to get to the point where they can simply talk comfortably about being ready to marry in the summer. But they have, all three of those plot lines have now resolved themselves. Mr. Gray has left his chambers. He's decided to retire from his business and give it over to Mr. Barry. Montjoy Scarborough believes that marrying Florence Montjoy will save him from his gambling addiction. I can think that he's wrong about that, but he believes it, and when she turns him down, she's in love with Harry Annesley, when she turns him down, he goes back to Tretton Park a gloomy, ruined man. And the last we see of him, he's been spotted at the gambling tables in Monte Carlo, where, as he has correctly said in the course of the novel, and other people have said it too, he could lose the whole worth of Tretton times 10 in no time at all. He's not a good gambler. He's easily beaten. He's easily taken for everything he's worth, and he can't help himself. All of those plot lines have now been resolved. But Trollope isn't quite done yet. He likes slow goodbyes. And so the last three chapters of the book are all goodbyes. They are all, they don't materially do much to those plots that we've mentioned, but they do so slowly wind us away. So we're going to read the first of those right now, which is the last of Mr. Gray. All three of the final chapters are the last of something. I have put in my last appearance in the old chamber at Lincoln Inn Fields, said Mr. Gray on arriving home an early day in June. Papa, you don't mean it, said Dolly, that's his daughter. I do. Why not one day as well as another? I have made up my mind that it is to be so. I have been thinking of it for the last 6 weeks. It is done now. But you have not told me. Well, yes, I have told you all that was necessary. It has come now to a little sudden, that is all. You will never go back again? Well, I may look in. Mr. Barry will be lord and master. At any rate, he won't be my lord and master, said Dolly, showing by the tone of her voice that the matter had been again discussed by them since the last conversation, which was recorded, and had been settled to her father's satisfaction. That is a reference to the fact that Mr. Barry actually proposed to marry Dolly, and she roundly rejected him. And at the time, we were given all sorts of ambiguous qualifications and descriptions of Barry by Trollope. that weren't entirely negative, but lately in the book, much later than that, just recently, Trollope and other characters have started to characterize him as a sharp customer, someone who doesn't really mind if his clients are unethical. So maybe it's a good escape. No, you at least will be left to me. But the fact is, I cannot have any further dealings with the affairs of Mr. Scarborough. The old man who is dead was too many for me. Though I call him old, he was ever so much younger than I am. Barry says that he was the best lawyer he ever knew. And as things go now, a man has to be accounted a fool if he attempts to run straight. Barry does not tell me that I have been a fool, but he clearly thinks so. Do you care what Mr. Barry thinks or says? Yes, I do. In regard to the professional position which I hold, he is confident that Mountjoy Scarborough is his father's eldest legitimate son, and he believes that the old squire simply was anxious to supersede him to get some cheap arrangement made as to all the debts. I suppose that was the case before. But what am I to think of such a man? Mr. Barry speaks of him almost with affection. How am I to get on with such a man as Mr. Barry? Well, he himself is honest. Well, yes, I believe so. But he does not hate the absolute utter roguery of our own client. And that is not quite all. When the story of the Rummelsburg marriage was told, I did not believe one word of it, and I said so most strongly. I did not at first believe the story that there had been no such marriage, and I swore to Mr. Scarborough that I would protect Mountjoy and Mountjoy's creditors against any such scheme as that which was intended. Then I was convinced. All the details of the Nice marriage were laid before me. It was manifest that the lady had submitted to be married in the public manner with all the regular forms, while she had a baby, as it were, in her arms. And I got all the dates. Taking that marriage for granted, Mountjoy was clearly illegitimate, and I was driven so to confess. Then I took up arms on behalf of Augustus. Augustus was a thoroughly bad fellow, a bully and a tyrant, but he was the eldest son. Then came the question of paying the debts. I thought of it that it is a very good thing that the debt should be paid in the proposed fashion. The men were all to get the money they had actually lent, and no better arrangement seemed to be probable. I helped in that, feeling that it was all right. But it was a swindle that I was made to assist in. Of course it was a swindle, if the Rummelsburg marriage be true, and all these creditors think that I have been party to it. Then I swore that I wouldn't believe the Rummelsburg marriage, but Barry and the rest of them only shake their heads and laugh, and I am told that Mr. Scarborough was the best lawyer among us. But what does it matter? What can it hurt you? Asked Dolly. It does hurt me. That is the truth. I have been at my business so long enough. Another system has grown up which does not suit me. I feel that that they all can put their fingers in my eyes. It may be that I am a fool, and that my idea of honesty is a mistake. Oh, no, shouted Dolly. I heard of a rich American the other day who had been poor, and was asked how he had suddenly become so well off. I found a partner, said the American, and we went into business together. He had the capital, and I had the experience. We just made a change. He has the experience now, and I have the capital. When I knew that story, I went to strip his coat off the wretch's back, but Mr. Barry would give him a fine fur cloak as a mark of respect. When I find that clever rascals are respectable, I think it is time that I should give up work altogether. So Mr. Grey is justifying his actions now. He's leaving the pursuit of the law, but not because he was made a fool of. He's mainly thinking it's because the times are changing. Thus it was that Mr. Grey left the house of Grey and Barry, driven to premature retirement by the vices, or rather frauds, of old Mr. Scarborough. When Augustus went to work, which he did immediately on his father's death, to wrest the property from the hands of his brother, or what part of the property might be possible, Mr. Grey absolutely declined to have anything to do with the case. Mr. Barry explained how impossible it was that the house, even for its own sake, should absolutely secede from all consideration of the question. Mountjoy had been left in possession, and according to all the evidence now before them, was the true owner. Of course he would want a lawyer, and as Mr. Barry said, would be very well able to pay for what he wanted. It was necessary that the firm should protect themselves against the vindictiveness of Mr. Tyrwhitt or Samuel Hart. Those are moneylenders. And Mr. Barry is saying, you don't want anything more to do with the Scarboroughs, but the firm must continue to do business with them. Should the firm fail to do so, it would leave itself open to all manner of evil calumnies. The firm had so long been employed on behalf of the Scarboroughs that now, when the old squire was dead, it could not afford to relinquish the business till this final great question had been settled. It was necessary, as Mr. Barry said, that they should see it out, Mr. Barry taking as much more leading part in these discussions than had been his wont. Consequently, Mr. Grey had told him that he might do it himself, and Mr. Barry had been quite contented. Mr. Barry, in talking the matter over with one of the clerks, whom he afterwards took into partnership, expressed his opinion that poor old Grey was altogether off the hooks. Old Grey had always been Mr. Grey when spoken of by Mr. Barry till that day, and the clerk, remarking thus, left Mr. Grey's bell unanswered for 3 or 4 minutes. Mr. Grey, though he was quite willing to shelve himself, understood it all, and knocked them about in the chambers that afternoon with unwonted severity. He said nothing about it when he came home that evening, but the next day was the last on which he took his accustomed chair. "What will you do with yourself, Papa?" Dolly said to him the next morning. "Do with myself? What employment will you take in hand? One has to think of that, and to live accordingly. If you would like to turn farmer, we must live in the country." "Certainly I shall not do that. I need not absolutely throw away what money I have saved." "Or if you are fond of shooting and hunting?" "You know very well I never shot a bird and hardly ever crossed a horse in my life." "But you are fond of gardening?" "Haven't I got a garden enough here?" "Quite enough if you think so, but will there be occupation sufficient in that to find you time for employment for all your life?" "Well, I shall read." And here everyone listening to me is cheering, because of course that was the first thing that came to their minds. They'll have time to do all the reading they want. "It seems to me," she said, "that reading becomes wearisome as an only pursuit unless you've made yourself accustomed to it." "Shan't I have as much employment as you?" "A woman is so different, Papa. Darning will get through an unlimited number of hours. A new set of underclothing will occupy me for a fortnight. Turning the big girls' dresses over there into frocks for the little girls is sufficient to keep my mind employed for a month." Talking here about the family of Mr. Grey's sister, the Carroll family, which he is keeping. He provides the money for their upkeep. The Mr. Carroll is a useless drunken sot, so he doesn't provide anything for his family. They live entirely on him. And the smocks, the frocks that are mentioned here, are that you have a dress for the older girls. Once they outgrow it or don't want it anymore, then you convert the material into something for the younger girls. Then I have the maidservants to look after and to guard against their lovers. I have the dinners to provide and to see that the cook does not give the fragments to the policeman. I have been brought up to do these things, and habit has made them usual occupations to me. I never envied you when you had to encounter all Mr. Scarborough's vagaries, but I knew that they sufficed to give you something to do." "They have sufficed," said he, "to leave me without anything that I can do." "You must not allow yourself to be so left. You must find out some other employment." Then they sat together silent for a time, while Mr. Grey occupied himself with some of the numerous papers which it would be necessary that he should hand over to Mr. Barry. "And now," said Dolly, "Mr. Carroll will have gone out, and I will go over to the terrace. I have to see them every day, and Mr. Carroll has the decency to take himself off to some billiard table so as to make room for me." Dolly cannot stand Mr. Carroll, a typical loutish, drunken Irishman who's no good for anything. She can't stand him. She can't even stand to be civil to him or to be in the same room with him. "What are they going to do about that man?" said Mr. Grey. "About the lover? Mr. Juniper has, I fancy, made himself extremely disagreeable, not satisfying himself with abusing you and me, but poor aunt as well, and all the girls. He has, I fancy, got some money of his own. He has had money paid to him by Captain Scarborough, but that, I should fancy, would rather make him in good humour than the reverse. He is only in a good humour, I take it, when he has something to get. However, I must be off now, or the legitimate period of Uncle Carroll's absence will be over." The gist here is that the earlier scene that we saw, where Mr. Juniper was one of the people importuning Captain Scarborough, crossing the park of his property on the day that his father is buried. It was previously adjudged that Mr. Juniper did not have a very good claim to any money from Captain Scarborough, but you get the impression that Tretton is so wealthy now and that Captain Scarborough so much wants to be done with all of this that he's just paying anyone who says that he owes them money. So Mr. Juniper got money, but since he doesn't need the money that would come from Mr. Grey on settling marriage to one of the girls, he's been mean to everybody, and so he's on the outs. Uh, Mr. Gray, when he was left alone, at once gave up the manipulation of his papers and, throwing himself back into his chair, began to think of that future life of which he had talked so easily to his daughter. What should he do with himself? He believed that he could manage with his books for 2 hours a day, but even of that he was not sure. 2 hours a day? That's just a warm-up for me. He much doubted whether for many years past the time devoted to reading in his own house had amounted to 1 hour a day. He thought that he could employ himself in the garden for 2 hours, but that would fail him when there should be hail, or fierce sunshine, or frost, or snow, or rain. Eating and drinking would be much to him, but he could not but look forward to his self-reproach if eating and drinking were to be the joy of his life. Then he thought of Dolly's life, how much purer and better and nobler it had been than his own. She talked in a slight and careless tone of her usual day's work, but how much of her time had been occupied in doing the tasks of others? He knew well that she disliked the Carrolls. She would speak of her own dislike of them as her great sin, of which it was necessary that she should repent in sackcloth and ashes. And yet how she worked for the family, turning old dresses into new frocks, as though the girls who had worn them and the girls who were to wear them had been to her dearest friends, when they mock her to her face. Every day she went across to the house intent upon doing good offices, and this was the repentance in sackcloth and ashes which she exacted from herself. Could not he do as she did? He could not darn Minnie's and Brenda's stockings, or he might do something to make the children more worthy of their cousin's care. He could not associate with his brother-in-law because he was sure Mr. Carroll would not endure his society, but he might labor to do something for the reform of even this abominable man. Before Dolly had come back to him, he had resolved that he could only redeem his life from stagnation with which it was threatened by working for others, now that the work of his own life had come to a close. "Well, Dolly," he said, as soon as she entered the room, "have you heard anything more about Mr. Juniper?" "Have you been here ever since, Papa?" "Yes, indeed. I used to sit in chambers for 6 or 7 hours at a stretch, almost without getting out of my chair." "And are you still employed about those awful papers?" "I have not looked into them since you left the room." "Then you must have been asleep." "No, indeed, I have not been asleep. You left me too much to think of to enable me to sleep. What am I to do with myself besides eating and drinking, so that I shall not sleep always on this side of the grave?" "There are 20 things, Papa, 30, 50, for a man so minded as you are." This she said, trying to comfort him. "I must endeavor to find 1 or 2 of the 50. Then he went back to his papers and really worked hard on them that day. On the following morning early he went across to Bolsover Terrace, that's where the Carrolls live, to begin his task of reproving the Carroll family without saying a word to Dolly indicative of his purpose. He found that the task would be difficult, and as he went he considered within his mind how best it might be accomplished. He had put a prayer book in his pocket, without giving it much thought, but before he knocked at the door he had assured himself that the prayer book would be of no avail. He would not know how to begin to use it, and felt that it would be ridiculed. He must leave that to Dolly or to the clergyman. He could talk to the girls, but they would not care about the affairs of the firm, and in truth he did not know what they would care about. With Dolly he could hold sweet converse as long as she would remain with him, but he had been present at the bringing up of Dolly, and did think that the gifts had been given to Dolly which had not fallen to the lot of the Carroll girls. A diplomatic way of saying they're coarse and dumb. They all want to be married, he said to himself, and that at any rate is a legitimate desire. With this he knocked at the door, and when it was opened by Sophia, he found an old gentleman with black cotton gloves and a doubtful white cravat, just preparing for his departure. There was Amelia, then giving him his hat and looking as pure and proper as though she had never winked at by Prince Chitakov. Then the mother came through from the parlor into the passage. "Oh, John, how very kind of you to come. Mr. Matterson, pray let me introduce you to my brother, Mr. Gray. John, this is the Reverend Mr. Matterson, a clergyman who is a very intimate friend of Amelia." "Me, Ma? Why me in particular?" "Well, my dear, because it is so. I suppose it is so as long as Mr. Matterson likes you best." "Laws, Ma, what nonsense!" Mr. Matterson appeared to be a very shy gentleman, and only anxious to escape from the hall door. But Mr. Gray remembered that in former days, before the coming of Mr. Juniper on the scene, he had heard of a clerical admirer. He had been told that that gentleman's name was Matterson, but he was not very young nor very rich, and that he had 5 or 6 children, that he could afford to marry if the wife could bring with her about £100 a year. He had not then much thought of Mr. Matterson, and no direct appeal had been made to him. After that, Mr. Juniper had come forward, and then Mr. Juniper had been altogether abolished. It occurred to Mr. Grey that Mr. Matterson was at any rate better than Mr. Juniper, that he was by profession a gentleman, and that here might be the beginning of those good deeds by which he was anxious to make the evenings of his days bearable to himself. "I'm delighted to make Mr. Matterson's acquaintance," he said, as that old gentleman scrambled out the door. Then his sister took him by the arm and led him at once into the parlor. "You might as well come and hear what I have to say, Amelia." So the daughter followed them in. "He is the most praiseworthy gentleman you ever knew, John," began Mrs. Carroll. "A clergyman, I think." "Oh, yes, he is in orders, in a priest's orders," said Mrs. Carroll, meaning to make the most of Mr. Matterson. "He has a church over at Putney." "Well, he's a kind of priest. If he can get married, he's not a real priest, but he's a kind of priest. He's a Protestant priest." "I'm glad of that," said Mr. Grey. "Yes, indeed, though it isn't very good, because it's only a curate's £150. Yes, he does have £150 and something out of the surplus fees." "Another £100, I believe it is," said Amelia. "Not quite as much as that, my dear, but it is something." "He is a widower with children, I believe," said Mr. Grey. "There are children, 5 of them, the prettiest little dears one ever saw. The eldest is just about 13. This was a fib, because Mrs. Carroll knew that the eldest boy was 16. But what did it signify? Amelia is so warmly attached to them. Is it a settled thing, then?" "We do hope so. It cannot be said to be quite settled, because there are always money difficulties. Poor Mr. Matterson must have some increase to his income before he can afford it." "Ah, yes." "You did say something, uncle, about £500, said Amelia. "450, my dear," said Mr. Grey. "Oh, I had forgotten. I did say that I hoped there would be 500. "There shall be 500, said Mr. Grey, remembering that now had come the time for doing to one of the Carroll family the good things which he had thought to himself. "As Mr. Matterson is a clergyman of whom I have heard nothing but good, it shall be 500. He had in truth heard nothing, either good or bad, respecting Mr. Matterson. Then he asked Amelia to take a walk with him as he went home, reflecting that now had come the time in which a little wholesome conversation might have its effect. But an idea entered his head that in his old age an acquaintance with a neighboring clergyman might be salutary to himself. So Amelia got her bonnet and walked home with him. "Is he an eloquent preacher, my dear?" But Amelia had never heard him preach. "I suppose there will be plenty for you to do in your new home?" "I do not mean to be put upon, if you mean that, uncle." But 5 children." "There is a servant who looks after them. Of course I shall have to see Mr. Matterson's own things, but I have told him that I cannot be a slave for all of them. The eldest 3 have been sent somewhere. That has been agreed upon. They have to be sent somewhere. He has got an unmarried sister who can quite afford to do as much as that." Then she explained her reasons for the marriage. "Papa is getting to be quite unbearable, and Sophie spoils him in everything." Poor Mr. Grey, when his niece turned and went back home, thought, as far as the girl was concerned, or her future household, that there would be very little room for employment for him. He's come over here to try and improve the Carroll girls. He's going to find they're not improvable. They're trash. Mr. Matterson wanted an upper servant, who, instead of demanding wages, would bring a little money with her. And he could not but feel that the poor clergyman would find that he had taken into his house a bad and expensive upper servant. Mr. Matterson wants an upper servant in the same way that so many in the resurgent, I hesitate to call it conservative circles, fascist circles would be better. They also want women who are upper servants as wives. Not equals, not friends, not partners. Servants. You'll do the laundry, you'll take care of the kids, you'll order the food and fix it, and it'll be to my liking, or I'll backhand you. And because my Christian theocracy has removed no-fault divorce and also removed your right to vote, you'll have no choice in the matter. That's what is meant by an upper servant here. And the point I'm making is that I wish this mind frame were dead, but it's actually on the upsurge. So, "Never mind, Papa," said Dolly. "We will go on and persevere, and if we intend to do good, good will certainly come of it." That is the end of the chapter. That is the last of Mr. Grey, with Dolly saying, if we intend to do good, good will certainly come of it. If there's one thing that has been proven wrong by this book, it's that sentiment. That is that chapter. That is the last of Mr. Grey. So we will move on. I will see you next time. Thank you, BookTube.